When you go to door, what are your people telling you? What are they after?
More moderates, frankly, because I think either extreme doesn't serve our state well.
Joining us for the very first time on Democratic Visions is Melisa Franzen. Melisa Franzen is seeking the Senate seat for District 49, which includes Edina, parts of Eden Prairie, parts of Minnetonka, and West Bloomington. Melisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim.
So, Melisa, I know you were endorsed because I was at your convention. Tell me why you decided to run.
Well, I've been watching what's been playing out in the Minnesota politics for the last couple of years, and frankly, just been very concerned with the direction of our state, and thought this was the greatest time for me to jump in and do something about it, because I'm very concerned where we're headed.
I would say that any fair observer of the legislature over in St. Paul would say that that body is dysfunctional. You have highly partisan ideologues on the right wing trying to thwart government. How can you ably serve the residents of Senate District 49 in that environment?
Well, I think, what's really missing is people willing to listen and working together, and more moderates, frankly, because I think either extreme doesn't serve our state well. And it's time for us to really focus on the goal of making Minnesota a better place for all of us, not just for a few.
When you go to door, what are your people telling you? What are they after?
Well, they're looking for people who are actually going to stand up for them, for the constituents, for the community, and are actually going to take the bold steps that are needed to put Minnesota back on track in the right direction. We still are dealing with a projected $4.2 billion deficit in the next biennium. We still owe $2.4 billion for our kids' education, and people see those issues and understand them.
Borrowed money from the schools, in other words.
Correct.
Let's assume, and I do assume, that with President Obama on the ticket and Senator Amy Klobuchar on the ticket and good candidates like yourself, that there will be a Democratic majority restored to the state Senate. What areas would you attempt to get involved in over in that body?
Well, one of the issues that I'm very passionate about is education. I think that's the foundation of a good democracy, a foundation of a good workforce for companies to settle in Minnesota and call Minnesota home. And that's where it all begins. And we need to start investing more, not less, in education, and not just throwing money in a black hole, but being accountable for that money as well. Minnesota has one of the best school districts in schools in the country, but also one of the worst achievement gaps in the country. So we need to fix that, and that's where I would start.
Do you have any committees that you would like to focus on when you serve the constituents of Senate District 49?
On top of my list would be education, jobs in the economy, and healthcare, because I have been working on healthcare reform from a business perspective for the last couple of years and know how healthcare reform needs to be implemented in Minnesota as well. So healthcare is a very complicated issue, and it's undergoing a lot of changes, and it's going to continue to do so, because if we don't tackle healthcare, it's going to bankrupt the country.
District 49. All right.
And I have to vouch for myself. I'm not the youngest one in this crowd. There's a 1-year-old over there. Future Democrat, hopefully already.
What ideas do you have as to how we can restore the health of Minnesota on a business basis?
One easy one that comes to mind is actually funding Southwest Corridor. It will bring 3,500 jobs just in construction, and over the course of the life, it will bring about 60,000 jobs along the corridor once it's completed. So that's an easy one that we should be funding, and it wasn't part of the bonding bill. Unfortunately, the GOP was short-sighted and didn't approve it.
Melisa, West Bloomington, the whole of Edina, parts of Minnetonka, parts of Eden Prairie. Why did you and your husband decide to move into this area?
Well, Tim, it's a great place to live, great amenities, great quality of life. Of course, the schools are second to none. It's a great place to raise a family, and you see that time and time again when I keep talking to people who are even new to the district. A lot of it is location, school district, parks and recreation, and we want to make sure that we continue to preserve that for generations to come.
And if we get that light rail transit in place,
even better.
When you run for re-election, you'll be able to take the light rail right over to St. Paul.
I take public transportation to work every day as much as I can, so I would definitely be one of those people that would take the Southwest Corridor to work.
Do you have an interest in environmental issues?
Absolutely.
What do you think the state of Minnesota could do better than it's doing right now in that regard?
Well, we currently have one of the most aggressive renewable portfolio requirements in the nation, and I think that's a great thing, and that we should do more in terms of bringing manufacturing of clean energy and renewable sources to Minnesota. We haven't been up to speed on that as much as having the mandate to have a renewable 25% of renewable energy by 2025. I think that's a good step in the right direction, but I still think we have a lot of opportunity to do more in clean energy. And I don't know if you know this, but I have solar panels on my roof.
Do you?
So I
Didn't know that.
definitely believe in clean energy as a reliable source of energy, and an option that we should start investing more, not less.
Melissa, I know that you have been running and will continue to run a positive campaign, stressing your ideas and how you can best serve the Senate district. But isn't there a little bit of you that says to yourself, Representative Downey, my opponent, isn't in the mainstream of how people in Senate District 49 view issues?
The way I would vote on some of the things that were up for votes this last session, I would have voted differently than Representative Downing, because long-term they would be a better option for Minnesota.
Melisa Franzen and her husband Nathan live in Edina. Melissa is a lawyer at Target Corporation and has degrees both from Hamline University Law School and a master's degree from the Hubert Humphrey Institute at the University of Minnesota. In their spare time, which I'm sure is very short now that you're in the campaign mode, Melissa and Nathan do what many Minnesotans do. They enjoy the outdoors, both on hikes and at their cabin. Growing up in Puerto Rico, Melisa Franzen was an active Girl Scout for 12 years and now serves on the board of directors for the Girl Scouts of America. She's also very involved in other community activities. Melissa, why don't you tell us about some of those activities?
Sure. Well, I've been in Minnesota the last 11 years of my adult life, and the very first year I moved to Minnesota, I started volunteering in the West Side with the neighborhood house. I've volunteered in many organizations, and including in leadership positions such as the Minnesota Hispanic Bar Association, where I was president, and the Hispanic National Bar Association. I do a lot of volunteering and pro bono work in the community, and I think that just keeps a good pulse of what's really going on in our community.
Melissa, it's been great for you to come by, and I'm sure you'll come by again, and hopefully as a winning candidate.
Thank you, Tim.
Democratic Visions is handmade by volunteers through DFL Senate District 48, Eden Prairie and Minnetonka. Lori Pryor, Chair.